Stay the fuck away. Stay the fuck away. Stay the fuck away. Stay the fuck away. Well, hello, everybody. Sean Patrick here for the first time in a while, so we'll have to use the way back machine on this one. For starters, we recently lost, among many others, two famous people, Alex Trebek and Sean Connery. One entertained us by challenging us to broaden our knowledge base, the other with violence and misogyny. Now, I know everyone else did this, and I don't like to jump on the bandwagon, but it's time for the Stay the Fuck Away from Sean Patrick 2020 U.S. Election Special. So let's go way back to October 29th. Things were getting heated about letting rich Americans in sans quarantine, and various politicians were being busted for not following public health guidelines. While these things were being described as mistakes, and borders were supposedly closed to all but essential travel, the Global National anchor Donna Friesen is suddenly anchoring from Washington. What? How is that in any way essential? It prompted me to post the comment, Global News has Washington correspondents, so what made it essential for Donna to be there? I hope that was a mistake, and they don't let her back. Well, this got some response. Well, I'm going to try to get into character here, as I'm reading these as they were written, to which I must say, whilst being better crafted than most of the shit I try to decipher in the comments sections, still have some serious grammatical issues. The first one tried to use proper punctuation, but couldn't capitalize the beginnings of sentences and felt the need to do two words in full caps, the spirit of which I will attempt to capture. Good Lord! Where do people get the idea they cannot travel? You are welcome to leave Canada to the US by air. Nothing there to stop you, and it has always been open. No need for essential travel to go the US. We have been to Disney, but I did deem that essential. Well, being the nice guy that I am, instead of asking if they stopped for wings after the basketball game or how I too can go the US, instead of pointing out that Disney is not a place, he's a corpse, I simply responded with, obviously the terms border closed and essential are very open to interpretation, much like the good Lord. They didn't respond to that, but I gotta say, if we can go to Florida without proving that we are in fact wrestlers, I don't know what closed to all but essential travel means. And then I got a comment with a little more venom. Now I'm going to try a new character here. When your job is to travel for work, you are called an essential worker. They are only letting essential workers to cross. Sometimes it takes just a bit of common sense to answer questions. Well, again, nice guy. So I didn't ask why I'm not essential, considering that my work requires me to travel to several different corners depending on the day of the week. Nor did I ask why they clearly weren't on theirs. And I didn't address the clear lack of common sense they used in not editing that first sentence. What I did say is, yet another reporter in Washington to cover the U.S. election is in no way essential, and suggesting that just because your job involves travel, it makes you essential, sounds like something from a Trump speech. There are millions of people out of work simply because of that fact. Again, no response, but other people started supporting me and attacking that commenter, which wasn't what I intended, but since I knew that was a possible and or likely outcome of my actions, it was a choice, not a mistake. Now, fast forward to November 4th. On the same day as having an hour-long America Votes Day 2 election special, CBC's Nightly News took the first 35 minutes talking about the American election. Now, I know this does affect our lives, but the American election did not suddenly switch Canada off. Now, in that 35 minutes, they did spend about 2.5 minutes of time on a piece they titled Trudeau Stays Quiet on U.S. Election. For now, which he has to because he's the prime minister and his main job is diplomacy. So this is definitely not news. And about the same amount of time on election uncertainty creates unease in Alberta town. Now, while these topics have a Canadian connection, they are also both obviously wasting time looking at Canadians through an American lens and focusing on the US, not us. So after 35 minutes of this drivel, they finally spent almost a whole minute giving us the Canadian COVID count, which they should always lead with these days, never mind letting it play 17th fiddle to a bunch of people making predictions about something routine in any democracy, the outcome of which will become obvious very soon. Speculation is not news, it's editorializing, and you already have a full hour dedicated to that shit. Of course there's going to be a bit about it, but really? And then, in the remaining 9 minutes, they still felt the need to do a piece about what Canadians think about the American election. Oh yeah, and then there was that important piece of news in the last bit that was that was about how it is now recommended to wear a 3-layered mask, which Health Canada has been promoting since April, and including patterns for making them on their website. Really, in the end, the 45 minutes news program, the only actual news was the 1-minute COVID Conquers Canada update. Why is this the shit we are fed as news? It's because a large portion of the population prefers sensation and speculation to fact. All of this comes back to the difference between making a mistake and making a bad decision. A mistake suggests that there was some sort of an accident, or there was a bit of knowledge that wasn't available at the time. So did a politician who asked people not to entertain in their homes do just that and then publicly announce it make a mistake or a bad decision? Or another politician had an unmasked and undistanced indoor photo op, mistake or bad decision? How about an American politician asking their constituents to stay home for Thanksgiving right before going to the airport and flying to dinner with their family? Mistake or a bad decision? Now, apologies don't make up for this kind of behavior because this is the definition of mixed messages. And since there's a portion of our population still sucking in too much oxygen and going crazy with it, this sort of thing cannot happen. Do as I say, not as I do has been proven not to work, and frankly, is just plain douchebaggery. If they don't have to follow the rules, why do we? The fact is that all over the world, things have returned to the scary death days. And this is because of the personal choices we're making. When the initial wave of drumfitis calmed and restrictions started to ease, many people decided it was time to party like it's 2019 and go to church for an unmasked Mennonite orgy. Aside from reigniting the spread, those who went rat-licking and knob-gobbling, knowing what they were doing was wrong, either didn't go and get tested afterward or didn't give proper contact information when they did get tested because they couldn't and or wouldn't name everyone they'd been near recently. No matter how good or bad our contact tracing system was, this destroyed it. Since we lost the ability to trace, we lost the ability to contain the spread. Thus, the provincial governments are attempting to cut down on the ways in which drumfitis could be spread by massive closures of many small businesses. Now, even though these have been proven not to be the main cause of the spread, except for isolated, packed spin classes and diners, the number of places in which the virus can spread needs to be limited. Of course, it is unfair to force us all to shop at the big box disease pits, and this is making those even more risky. But you know what else is unfair? The fact that some people chose not to adhere to the simple public health restrictions, creating the bed we are all now suffocating in. Nobody said we could stop physical distancing. Nobody said we could stop washing our hands. And once the Royal Canadian Physics Society finished its multi-million-dollar study on do filters work from both directions, we were told to wear masks, and nobody with any intelligence has suggested we stop that either. And speaking of bad decisions, south of the border, their selfish, classless tyrant is throwing a paperwork tantrum, trying to hold on to the red button he should never have been anywhere near in the first place. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if there was election fraud. I mean, really, corruption in politics? Who knew? But anyone who's seen even half an episode of Matlock can tell you that the burden of proof is on the plaintiff. Or, to simplify it for Giuliani and Drumpf, saying something doesn't make it true no matter how loud you shout it. And the Republican-packed judicial system is responsible for tossing these claims out as fast as they come because the lawyers suddenly stop using the word fraud as soon as the hearing starts. Why is that? No evidence. Who is paying for all of this? Well, Trump is still the president, so it's the American taxpayer. This is a man who spent $3 million for a recount that got his opponent another 80 votes whilst continuing to block a relief bill. That money came from their campaign fund, which came largely from corporations and fat cats, but partially from the American people he continues to ignore. Trump is the least presidential person possible, and it looks like he's getting the boot. I hope they follow it with a throne book. Trump is the biggest fountain of misinformation ever created, which has and will continue to cause serious issues for years worldwide. He just says whatever he wants, preceded with, "I heard." And that somehow makes all of his bullshit not only just fine, but factually accurate. Even when he refers to any academic paper, he cherry picks tiny bits out of it and spins them, which becomes incredibly evident if you actually look at the information he's citing. He has continuously lied to and taken advantage of the American public, which is proven by just watching his speeches. If you can't see the shit he's spewing, it's because you don't want to. It's right there in his own words, unedited. So to all the people everywhere, as Juicy Justin said, this really sucks. Well, it does, but what sucks worse is the knowledge that we made this far worse by not being reasonable and taking this virus seriously. Selfishness is why we are where we are now, and mistakes didn't ruin Christmas. Bad decisions did. So remember, kids, wear a mask, stay the fuck away from each other, and wash everything. A lot.